The MLB trade deadline is about 10 days away, and something that I like to do around every sports trade deadline, make a tier list. And we're going to try to predict guys that are going to end up getting traded. We're going to have them into a bunch of different tiers, given that I think, you know what, there's a 100% chance they're getting traded, or maybe this one is just a pipe dream right now. So I have 5 different tiers. There's a 100% chance they get traded. There's a really good chance in tier number 2, so I don't want to put 100% of like my life's earnings that they get traded. 50-50 chance they could not. We'll see what the market's going to be like. Low, but wouldn't shock me. Small percent chance they get traded, and a 0% chance I think they get moved at the deadline. And I have a bunch of different guys that have been rumored to be in the trade market. I don't know why Shohei Ohtani got put in here. I made this tier list myself, but I think I accidentally put him in here. Obviously, he's not getting traded. So the first one we can start off with, Adolis Garcia. The Texas Rangers haven't been, I guess, the best team in terms of their standards this year. They've been around 500 most of the year. They haven't really been at the top of the AL West. That's been mostly the Houston Astros, a little bit of the Seattle Mariners, a team that I also expect to buy. This is an older team with the Texas Rangers. They just lost to the Detroit Tigers on Sunday Night Baseball. They're exactly 500 on the season, but I don't think that they're going to be too big of sellers right now. I just feel like with how much they're invested into Corey Seager, Jacob deGrom, Marcus Semien, this aging roster, they want to see if they can get hot in the second half. Now, they don't have the best farm system to trade from. I don't know if we're going to see like a Josh Young get traded. I know he got sent down to the minors. They probably aren't going to, I think, be too aggressive of buyers. It's not going to happen, but Nathan Eovaldi would have such a robust market. I do think for Adolis Garcia, it's low, but it wouldn't shock me. Maybe they do somewhat of like a soft sell like they've done in the past, somewhat similar to what they did last year as well. He's been a fan favorite there in Texas, but man, since that 2023 World Series, 2024 was not great. 2025, it's been kind of a boomer bust at bat every single time with him, and it's been a lot more bust than boom. So I wouldn't be shocked if he gets traded, and we'll see if they would pay down some of his salary as well. I'm going to say there's a 100% chance that Adrian Houser gets traded from the Chicago White Sox. I mean, this man has been dealing as of late. I wish he was this good for my Mets last year, and there's just no point of Adrian Houser being on the Chicago White Sox past the deadline. They're one of the worst teams in the MLB. They obviously have this starting pitching core kind of get figured out right now. Drew Thorpe will be back in a year. You got Noah Schultz in the minors. We'll see when he's called up for this team, and there's just like no point for Adrian Houser, like I said, with the timeline of this roster. I don't think they're going to be competing at all in 2026, and neither do I think you should also re-sign Adrian Houser to a long-term deal at the end of the year. See if you can get somebody's like 17th best prospect, 15th best prospect for Adrian Houser at the deadline, because he is a 189 in about 60 innings pitched this year, and I think there's such a robust market for starting pitchers. We saw what like a rental and Yusei Kikuchi went for last year, who wasn't even pitching to like an ace standards in Toronto, and then the Astros gave up like 3 intriguing prospects for him at the deadline. I'm going to say 50-50 for Aroldis Chapman. It's really going to be how the next couple of days go for the Boston Red Sox. This was a team that we thought could be somewhat of like soft sellers at the deadline. Could they move Chapman? Could they move Bregman, who I don't have featured here, but I do have another Red Sox. But then they went on a little bit of a hot streak to end the first half. They didn't have the best series against Chicago after the All-Star break. So I think it's really just how these next few days go for the Red Sox. That's why I'm putting it as a 50-50, because Chapman, who is still wheeling and dealing at his age, it's kind of incredible that he is still throwing triple digits at his age, and he's been elite yet again as a closer. Now, there's going to be some volatility. We've seen him kind of blow up at times in the playoffs, but for what it's going to cost you for a really good bullpen arm that's so valuable, like we saw him on the 2023 Rangers roster, he's been bouncing around ever since, or pretty much since the Yankees days. I think there could be value to Chapman if a team doesn't want to pay the premium for an Emmanuel Clase, a Johan Duran, or a Felix Bautista. It's going to cost you maybe a tenth of the price, like 10th of the price for Aroldis Chapman, given his age and contract status. So even the Red Sox may just try to capitalize, see if they could sell high on Chapman and could still make it to the playoffs without him, although that bullpen isn't great. I'm going to say Brian Reynolds. I don't think I'm going to put him in low, but wouldn't shock me. So we know he came out with his no trade list, and coincidentally, there was not a lot of contending or big market teams on there. So a lot of people thought it was maybe, okay, he doesn't want to be in the spotlight, but a lot of those states kind of coincide with high state income tax, and that's why he has those teams listed there, and it can give him a little bit more leverage in a deal as well. Brian Reynolds, he doesn't have the worst contract in the world, and he's been a very consistent hitter over the last 5+ years. This hasn't been the best first half of Brian Reynolds' career. It's probably up there with one of his worst, so I do think they'd be selling low for Reynolds right now. I don't know how. Paul Skeens would feel about this happening. I know the Pirates have been very disappointing this year. They've been one of the worst teams in baseball. I expected that going into the year. It's the same old thing with Bob Nutting and how he does not want to pay for this team and actually go deep into his pockets out there. So maybe if there's a good offer from a smaller market team, I don't think the Tampa Bay Rays are trading for Brian Reynolds. I don't know if there's going to be any Texas teams. Like, I don't think the Astros are looking to add payroll, or maybe even the Texas Rangers that don't have that income tax in their states. Like, the Diamondbacks aren't going to be buyers. So yeah, I'm going to have Brian Reynolds there in low, but wouldn't shock me. Byron Buxton, I mean, is going to be rumored. I don't think he gets traded, so I'm going to put him at my first 0% guy for once. Maybe not a lot of times we've had Byron Buxton be healthy in the first half of the year, and he's been healthy, and man, he could be somebody that can accumulate 4 to 5 WAR every single year if he could just stay healthy. The power's been back this year. He's got a great OPS on the season. He would be a very strong trade candidate because there's not a lot of great outfield bats on the market that have the upside of Byron Buxton, and he's got about 3 years, $45 million left on his deal after this year. And if he was a free agent, he would probably get way more than that, even with the injury risk. I just don't think Minnesota, who probably wants to compete again in 2026, wants to take a massive step back. For a team that already doesn't have a great lineup, to trade away your best bat when healthy would just be probably not the move unless they get a haul of prospects in return, and it's an offer they really can't refuse right now. I think for Cade Smith, I'm going to put him at 50-50. It does feel like the Guardians are going to listen heavily on Smith and Emmanuel Clase, who we'll get to in a second. And I do think Smith, I'll kind of do them both. I think has a better chance at getting moved than Clase. Now, relievers can go for a premium on the market. We saw what Jason Adam went for last year. They had to give up Robbie Snelling to get him. We saw what AJ Puck went for on the market last year. These relievers will go for a ton, especially if they have control, like Cade Smith, like Emmanuel Clase. Clase making a little bit more, but under his contract, the season he had last year and what he's been over the last few months, it's well worth paying him that contract going forward. He's just a fan favorite. He was the headliner, or maybe at the time was one of the pieces in the Corey Kluber return for Cleveland, and he's turned into arguably the best closer in baseball for the last half decade. I just think just what he means to the city, even though you may get a little bit more for Clase, I just don't think it's going to happen. It wouldn't totally shock me. Like, the Cleveland Guardians try to think 2 steps ahead every single time. They're a franchise that knows how volatile relievers can be and how you can consistently churn them out. I'm sure they wish they sold high on James Karinchak after the 2020 season, but I don't think they're going to move Clase. I think there's a better chance that they end up moving Cade Smith, although I think it's probably on the lower side of a 50-50. Like, it's definitely more Chapman. I would have Chapman up here if the Red Sox were more out of it right now. For Cedric Mullins, I'm going to say there's a really good chance. I mean, maybe there's the market isn't there for Mullins and he has a strong second half and there could be a qualifying offer or something like that from the Orioles. I'm not going to say there's a 100% chance he gets traded because the Orioles played a little bit better at the end of the first half of the season. But Mullins can't really defend, which has been a calling card for him in the past, and he can't really hit this year. So you may be lucky if you're getting the 20th best prospect from another team system if you're Baltimore, and maybe a team doesn't really want to take on Mullins' prorated contract for the rest of the year, and then maybe Baltimore also doesn't want to pay it. So I don't want to say that there's a 100% chance he gets traded, but there really should be close to that. Charlie Morton, I'm just going to throw in 50-50 as well. Just, does anybody want Charlie Morton, who's had his moments at the end of the first half as well? Baltimore should sell off Charlie Morton. I just don't think there could be a super strong market, but I probably should throw him in really good chance, right? Like, there's no way that he's on this team after the deadline if the Orioles sell in any way, shape, or form. It's funny because Trevor Rogers, I mean, they haven't really won that trade because Kyle Stowers was an all-star this year and just hit 3 home runs the other night, but Trevor Rogers, since getting called back up, has been pretty good this year. I'm going to say Morton, though, ends up, it's a really good chance he gets traded. I don't even know what it would be for. It might just be for cash, and they would have to pay the rest of the contract down, given his age and what he can really have just limited upside. He's just a depth arm at this point that I would be totally shocked if he cracked the playoff rotation on whatever team trades for him. I would say David Bednar 50-50, not the player he used to be. And the Guardians may look at this, right? Like, David Bednar was one of the best closers in the National League a few years ago, and relievers can just combust like that. And that may be more inclined to them to at least trade Cade Smith, because you never know what he could look like in 3 to 4 years. But Clase is at least proven with the longevity that, he's at least going to be a serviceable closer for most of the rest of his career. So I think Bednar 50-50. It just depends how much the Pirates are willing to sell. I had Brian Reynolds just because he's under contract. They need bats. Connor Griffin may not be called up for another 3 years. So I would say low, but wouldn't shock me. For Mitch Keller, I'm also going to throw in 50-50. Like, he's under contract going forward. It's not a hefty contract by any means, but for the Pittsburgh Pirates' standards, maybe it is a hefty contract. I just think it's like a shot in the chest of the fan base of Paul Skeens and this team that they just constantly don't spend in the offseason, specifically on bats. I think Bednar would probably make more sense actually than Mitch Keller, just because Keller's proven he's not the greatest starter in the world. He's been very inconsistent, but at least he's an arm for you because Jared Jones is hurt. Who knows how Bubba Chandler is going to look like when he gets called up. You have Mike Burrows. That's kind of like a swing arm eventually, or we'll see if he's going to be a depth or a real starter for them at one point. You got like Hunter Barco in the minors, Thomas Harrington as well. So maybe that makes them inclined to trade away Mitch Keller, but I wonder if a team like Chicago goes after Mitch Keller, they really have to overpay for him. We could talk about a couple Miami Marlins now. So the first one we could talk about is Edward Cabrera. I'm going to say low, but wouldn't shock me. We'll see if Peter Bendix wants to really sell high on Edward Cabrera, who always kind of had command issues, and he's looked a lot better in 2025 than he has over the last few years. He was once a top prospect, but since he has a little bit of control left, I don't know if Miami really wants to trade him. Miami has taken strides this year. They've been by far better than what they were in 2024. Like, you have the Rockies and the White Sox and the Pirates still in that bottom tier of teams right now, and the Miami Marlins are only 6 games under 500 right now on July 21st. So I don't think it would be wise for them to trade away. That's Edward Cabrera. I don't know why I threw Jesus Sanchez in there, because Jesus Sanchez, I do think he gets traded. Like, it just makes sense for them to move on from Sanchez right now. He's got still power to him in his game. They traded Brian De La Cruz last year, and Sanchez just has around a 740 OPS. He's got some power to him and could be really a nice jolt to a team trying to contend in their lineup that needs a little bit of juice. He could be like maybe a Jorge Soler from previous trade deadlines, or a Jock Peterson or somebody like that. I mean, he does have 3 years left on, of control, but I think that provides the value. I'm going to, I'll put the stamp that he 100% gets traded. And honestly, I'm thinking about it. I'm going to bump up Cedric Mullins as well. I think he gets traded. For Sandy Alcantara, I'm either debating 0% or low. I think if he was having a good season, the Marlins would have sold high on Sandy, but Sandy has been, you could see, the worst pitcher in baseball this year. You can make an argument he's been the worst player given the amount of innings he's pitched and how high his ERA is. We are in late July and it's still in the 7s. It is crazy. And his best starts this year have been against like the Rockies and the White Sox, or some of the worst lineups, or the Pirates, which I don't know. I can't see them getting multiple top 10 prospects from a team. I know he's got a fairly decent contract for what he can give you, but we are now, 3 years removed from his Cy Young season. He's coming off a major injury, and he's had some nice games this year. He still has some really nice stuff, but man, the results have not been kind. And I think maybe people will forget about this in the offseason and you can get a little bit more for Sandy. But I think now we're looking at the 2026 deadline for Sandy. I know you're going to lose probably a little bit of value given that a team may not have him like for one less playoff run for 2025. But man, I don't think you're getting 2 top 10 prospects for what Sandy has done this year, which is a damn shame. And it really hurts Miami going forward. So I don't think I'd be totally shocked if he got traded just because he's been in rumors for the last 6 months. But I think I would be shocked if Peter Bendix did sell him at maybe the lowest point of his career. For Felix Bautista, I'm going to say 50-50. Like, the Orioles may try to sell high on a good reliever that had a major injury last year, but has came back this year and has looked the part. He's somebody that's been one of the only guys in that Orioles staff and bullpen that's actually stepped up this year and that has been fairly consistent. There's still some volatility with Bautista closing out the 9th, but man, he still has incredible stuff. And I think this could be a very strong reliever market. We've already talked about Bednar, Bautista, Smith, Clase, and Chapman, and we still have a couple names left as well. Eugenio Suarez, I think 100% gets traded. Now, who knows, at this point, the Diamondbacks may win a couple games the way he's playing. He may hit 50 home runs this year. He's been one of the best power bats in the league, even during his time in Cincy and Arizona. Even in Seattle, he hit 30 home runs. He's got a 928 OPS this year. I think you can get a nice haul for Suarez, who's 33 years old. I mean, the Diamondbacks are 50-50, and maybe ownership doesn't want to sell, and they maybe want to see if they can compete because they have a good roster. It just sucks how much their starting rotation has taken some hits this year because of Burns getting Tommy John, Gallen, and Brandon Pfaadt have been disappointing. Merrill Kelly's also a free agent at the end of the year. Maybe I'll say there's a real... No. I think Suarez gets traded. We can honestly talk about all the Diamondbacks right now. Like, Josh Naylor's a free agent at the end of the year. Merrill Kelly's a free agent at the end of the year. And Zach Gallen's a free agent at the end of the year. So, I would say all these guys have a really good chance to get traded. I would say maybe Merrill Kelly is somebody they could think about re-signing at the end of the year. He's a little bit older than Zach Gallen, and he's somebody that I think the Diamondbacks would be more open to re-signing, a little bit more consistent in a way when he's been healthy. Although Gallen has had better stuff and better highs, it's just the lows this year for Gallen. You can make an argument outside of Sandy Alcantara, like him and Brandon Pfaadt have been maybe the next worst starting pitchers in the league. So I think there's a good chance that Gallen and Naylor get traded, unless maybe Naylor's 50-50 if they don't want to do a full sell-off. So I'll say Suarez, 100% chance. He's 33 years old. They're probably selling at the high for Suarez. He may not have another season like this again, and you can get a legitimate prospect or two for him at the deadline. I think you're selling low on Gallen. It sucks. He's in a walk year and he's got an ERA in the 5s and he's been all over the place this year. But I think the name value and the previous track record, you could still get a good return for him at the deadline. And I would say Merrill Kelly and Naylor as two more realistic re-sign candidates at the end of the year. I'll put them at 50-50. I don't think they're going to trade everybody because this is a team that's been willing to spend in the past. And I think they want to be competitive in 2026. So we could talk about some Minnesota Twins now. First one, Yohan Duran. I'm going to say low, but wouldn't shock me. I just think with his electric stuff, he's under control for the next few years. And I think Minnesota, like I said with Buxton before, they want to be good again next year. And I think Yohan Duran has had the track record of being a reliable closer. And maybe if we're at a point next year where they're like, okay, we have to do a little bit of a reset, he's a more likely 2026 candidate as well. And I think they're a team that, yeah, could improve the farm system a little bit, at least more so in the pitching aspect. So unless they get a complete haul for him, like I don't know if they're getting a Justin Crawford or Mick Abel from Philadelphia, but we'll see. I would say Griffin Jax maybe has a little bit better of a chance. I would say 50-50, just because he's got a similar contract to Yohan Duran. He's got insane stuff and a team may look to use him and keep him in high leverage moments and make him their closer. So I would say there's a little bit more optionality because like a lot of contending teams do have their closers now. I'm sure a team like Philadelphia would love to add a Yohan Duran, but I do think like a lot of teams that even have their closer, like the New York Mets or like the LA Dodgers, would also be open to adding Griffin Jax because I'm not sure how open Yohan Duran would be as a setup man. I don't think he really wants to do that at any point. And Joe Ryan, I mean, dude, he was electric over the weekend. I know it was against the Rockies, but it's tough. I mean, I'm going to say it's low, but he wouldn't shock me just because he's a great starting pitcher. He's been reliable for the last few years. Shout out to that Nelson Cruz trade, the one time that a team fleeces the Tampa Bay Rays. I just think it would be crazy if they traded their best pitcher. I think he's better than Jose Barrios, and they ended up trading him. I think you really have to give up a haul of prospects, and maybe a team like the Boston Red Sox, maybe a team like the Chicago Cubs pulls the trigger on that. I know he's been linked. We could talk about two pitchers in Kansas City, Chris Bubich. I'm going to put him at 0% chance. He's under contract for a little bit longer. And I think he had so many ups and downs with guys like Brady Singer and Daniel Lynch there in Kansas City. And there was a point where not a lot of people thought Chris Bubich would be the player he is this year. I know he's had his innings limit as well, or career high in innings limit, or career high innings pitch, I should say. He's not at a limit. So I don't think there's a chance he gets traded. I think there's a really good chance Seth Lugo gets traded. I don't think the Royals are making the playoffs and the postseason this year. So I think there is a really good chance they trade away Lugo, who's been reliable yet again, who's a free agent at the end of the year. He has a player option. He can opt out. And if he hits the open market, you may not get him on that price tag you had him over the last 2 years. So, hey, maybe there's a good relationship. Maybe you can re-sign him or sign him back in the offseason, but I would trade him if you're Kansas City. Another team that could definitely use a couple more prospects. Kyle Finnegan, I would say there's a really good chance as well. The Nationals have been somewhat disappointing. A lot of people thought they could be a breakout team this year. There's been some disappointments in the offensive side, but also I think for the starting rotation as well. I think Mike Soroka, he's probably going to get traded as well. I don't have him here, but I do think Finnegan could end up getting moved as well. A lot of good relievers on the open market. Jared Duran, man, he's so tough because I just don't see why Boston would trade him. I know they have just a plethora of outfielder options, but I just feel like they would be kind of selling low a little bit. I mean, I think it's, oh man, do I put the stamp on 0% or low, but wouldn't shock me? I'm going to say low, but wouldn't shock me because he's been in so many rumors, but I don't think Boston has ever hinted that they're willing to trade away Jared Duran right now, unless they traded him to Minnesota for a Joe Ryan, right? And we could see like a rare player for player trade. It could be kind of something we've seen like Luis Arias and Pablo Lopez in the past. And I would have had Pablo Lopez here as well, but with the injury, I don't really think he's going to get traded. Luis Robert, 50-50. Does anybody want to take on that contract right now? Does anybody want to give up a top 10 prospect for him? And maybe Chicago is like, you know what, we may as well hold on to him. Maybe he has a strong second half and we could trade him in the offseason because we may not even get a top 15 prospect because Luis Robert's been a pretty negative hitter over the last few years. Luis Severino, I would say 50-50 chance as well. It's just how much is the A's and their ownership and John Fisher wants to pay down of his contract, because I don't think any team wants to take on the $35 million remaining on his deal after this year, plus whatever you got to prorate for the second half, if that's at like $7 or so million. So I think it really depends. I mean, his home road splits are encouraging for a team acquiring him. He's pitched really bad in Sacramento, but really good on the road. So maybe a team, if you know they could pay down half of it, a team is willing to give up an okay prospect for him going forward. I think Marcell Ozuna gets traded. The Braves, man, maybe they go on a run in the second half. We've seen it in the past. We saw it for the 2021 Braves when they ended up winning the World Series. I don't think it's happening this year. I don't. And Ozuna is a free agent at the end of the year. I think it would be very smart for Atlanta to trade him, and I think they will. We got a couple Cardinals here. I think Ryan Helsley, probably 50-50 chance. It just depends if, for somebody that's a free agent at the end of the year, it just depends if the Cardinals think they can make the playoffs. They're about 2 games above 500 right now. I just think we never really know. How does Heim bloom? John Mozeliak kind of want to go forward with this team. Nolan Arenado, low, but wouldn't shock me. I mean, what team really wants to acquire Arenado in his contract? And he has the no trade clause as well, or the no trade list that we saw was in effect last offseason, because there was a good chance he was going to get traded to Houston. So we'll see. Maybe the Angels end up becoming buyers. Speaking of the Angels, we have a couple guys we could talk about here for them. I would say we could start off with Reed Detmers. I would say low. Low, but wouldn't shock me. I would love for a team to just get him in a new environment and could try to fix him there. Taylor Ward should get traded, but I just have no idea what the Angels are going to do. Watch them buy. I'll say really good chance, and I'm going to do the same with 100% traded for Tyler Anderson. They got to trade him, right? Do a soft sell. You could still go on a run in the second half. I know Mike Trout's been playing good as of late. You have Zach Neto. Who knows? They may end up calling up Tyler Bremner at one point this year. It's just what they do. That's what the Angels should do. I'm going to speak it into existence. Pete Fairbanks, low, but wouldn't shock me. The Rays could definitely end up making the postseason this year, but it's the Tampa Bay Rays. Maybe a team doesn't want to pay the price for a Cade Smith or a Clase or Bautista or Duran, and maybe they'd like Fairbanks going forward than a Helsley or a Chapman, some expiring deals there. So I would say the Rays should be buying, but they think they could just churn out a different closer. I would say, I don't know, I forgot. Yeah, Otani's here. I didn't mean to do that. Next up, we have Stephen Kwan. I think he doesn't get traded. The Guardians need bats, and I know this year's been a disaster. I think it's more likely they trade from their bullpen than they actually trade a controllable bat like Kwan, because this lineup has not been great around Jose Ramirez, basically since they traded away Francisco Lindor. I know they made it to the ALCS last year, but I was never convinced about their lineup going forward. We also have Ryan McMahon. I just 50-50. I think it just comes down to he's not been great this year. I think he's a serviceable enough third baseman, though. It's just, will the Rockies pay down the contract, and how does that affect what type of prospect do you get back? Ryan O'Hearn, I would say there's a 100% chance he gets traded. I think it all comes down to obviously what happens with the Orioles over the next few days, but he's a free agent at the end of the year. He's an all-star. You should trade him. You got Mountcastle coming back. You have Kobe Mayo that needs more playing time. You got Basayo. Rushman will be back eventually. Call up Basayo. I mean, it didn't work out for Kyle Stowers. Didn't work out for Connor Norby. I think you got to play the young guys going forward. And lastly, Zach Eflin. Definitely a volatile pitcher. Been hurt at times. I would say low, but wouldn't shock me. I just think with the injuries, maybe a team doesn't want to pay the price for Eflin when we saw him get traded last year to Baltimore. So that's gonna be for me. I hope you guys did enjoy this MLB trade video tier list. Let me know what you agree with or disagree with, or maybe there was a player that I didn't mention that you think there's a 100% chance they get traded. I didn't include any prospects. I do wonder who the best prospect that will get moved at the deadline will be. An Owen Casey, will it be a Mick Abel in Philadelphia, will it be a Jet Williams for the New York Mets? How aggressive will the Mets be? How aggressive will the Yankees be? Dodgers, Padres. I think there's going to be a lot of aggressive big market teams, and then we'll see the team on the fringes, right? The Texas Rangers, the St. Louis Cardinals, the Boston Red Sox. Will they be sellers or will they be buyers? I think it's going to be a fascinating deadline. I'm super excited. There's a lot of big names that could potentially get moved, and there could be a couple shockers here and there as well. So if you guys did enjoy it, appreciate you dropping a thumbs up. More videos coming out this week, so make sure you are subscribed. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.